You're tuned in to the Dakota Housing Network on Super Talk 1270 and supertalk1270.com. In-depth discussion and analysis of real estate issues nationwide and those issues unique to our area. Our team of experts includes Joe Sheehan, Greg Larson, Dave Floor, Brian Ritter, and a great variety of guests. The Dakota Housing Network begins now on Super Talk 1270 and supertalk1270.com.
And welcome to the program. My name is Greg Larson. I'm your host, along with Joe Sheehan.
Yay!
Our good friend from Ace Inspections, Mike Wilson, and of course the chairman of the board, Jim Walsh.
Woo!
Whoop, whoop. So, Joe, you've got something for us.
Hey, just briefly want to remind people that you can now find the interview that we did with Director Cordroy, the most powerful man from Mount
the
Olympus.
ground's already shaken.
It is. When he speaks, and of course, we were also educated on the fact of how smart he was as a 5-time winner of Jeopardy or something.
Jeopardy, and yeah.
So it truly is the interview
An
of
Olympic torchbearer.
An Olympic torchbearer, and supposedly, he came in second on walking on water. He did it. Yeah. It's just that somebody else did it better.
He was ankle deep. The other guy was
right above. So we have that interview with the most powerful man in financial regulatory history and in the world today, Director Richard Cordroy, and Senator Heitkamp. That is on if you go to the website and check out the Dakota Housing Network, you can go and see the YouTube play of it. We have the uninterrupted version, which is just the interview, and then we also have below that How to Fix Banking, which is Dave, Greg, and I commenting on the interview. So you can listen to either one of those. So go out. It's a great opportunity to have that kind of.
Supertalk1270.com.
Supertalk1270.com.
www.
Yeah. And you go to podcast and you go to Dakota Housing Network, and it's right there.
Yep. And then, like I said, one is titled Uninterrupted, which is just the interview. And the other one below that is How to Fix Banking, and that's with our commentary on it. And then, so please go check it out. It was a great honor to have the senator on and the director on, and to talk about what their visit to North Dakota, and to be able to talk about some of the and it was truly, as we have captioned the show before, 3 dumb guys asking smart guy questions.
Yep.
So with that, we the upcoming show, one of the things we want to talk about is we don't generally talk about, we're generally not a show of controversy, but coming up, Wells Fargo has been in the news. Of course, Wells Fargo has a local presence in the bank, and hey, listen, there's their executive, their CEO, Stumpf, has been on the Capitol Hill. They've been taking a beating. We're going to talk a little bit about the Wells Fargo problem, what it means, and we're going to compare that to what the government does and what the government costs consumers. Just our friends, a lot of us have worked with the folks here in the local community banks at Wells Fargo, and I've worked for Wells Fargo as well. I personally started my career there, and we want to certainly make a distinction between the folks that are working in the local community, serving people the best they can, versus the national scene and what Wells Fargo's caught up in the 2 million accounts that were created under false pretenses. But we're going to talk about that on this show. And it does involve a local entity, but we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what that means to the Bismarck Mandan community, and really how that relates to the government. And is the government free and clear on this, or are they calling foul on something that maybe that's the pot calling the kettle something? So anyway, with that, I'll turn the show back over, but I wanted to remind people about that interview. I wanted to talk about the upcoming shows that that I think will be of interest, just from the national housing and banking perspective coming to a local perspective.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
Hey, have a great show, guys.
Talk to you later. Joe has left the building. So let's talk a little bit about mortgage rates. It won't take long. Mike is still here.
I sure am. Ready to talk to you guys about a bunch of stuff coming up, the winter thing.
Yep. So this week, October 6, 2016, the primary mortgage market survey put out by Freddie Mac. Your mortgage interest rates on a 30-year fixed loan are down to 3.42%. Since this time last year, they've come down almost 0.5% on average. So the 15-year fixed rate is 2.72%, also slightly down. And the 5-year adjustable rate mortgage is 2.8%, So really, folks, why would you do an adjustable rate mortgage? Because they only adjust one way, and that's up.
That's right.
So folks are saying there's no real pressure to lock. Interest rates are staying the same. There's nothing happening that's going to push them up that we see. So that's a good thing. We still have a very, very attractive mortgage rate. We're going to talk just briefly here, Mike, about the National Price Index. And this is the overall average national price of homes, okay? Sure. Mm-hmm. And now they peg them on the 2008 low. This time this year, the National Price Index, the average price of a home is up 6.2% over this time last year.
Sure.
It's up 33.8% above the 2008 low. So it's significantly up over the 2008 low. However, it's still 1.4% down from the pre-2008 high. So it's fair to say nationally housing prices have fairly recovered from the low of 2008. Of course, in North Dakota, we didn't feel that. So North Dakota, average price of houses up so far this year across the state is 2.4% up. That's 46.6% up from the 2008 low, but it's 48.7% up from the 2008 pre-2008 highs. So we've had a regularly inclining rate. Frankly, it's been quite rapid. 46% over 6 years is pretty high. We've had some 12 and 14% rate appreciation prices in there. So 2.4% is actually kind of a comfortable increase. So those are your interest rates, folks. I don't get into them as deeply as those banker guys because they're not. They're much more involved in that. I'll just give you a couple of other quick prices things here. One of the things we look at in this show, is, if you've listened, is we talk about the pending home sales index. That's the homes that are sold but haven't closed. And the reason we look at that as a statistic to give us trends is it's a concentrate number of homes. It's a definite number. We know they're sold. We know they haven't closed. And so we can get a pretty good snapshot, if you will, of the market and what's happening on a small amount of homes. And it's proven to be very accurate. So the number of home sales is off, and we've been talking about this nationwide. Part of it's inventory, part of it's available buyers. Since this quarter, the millennial population is the highest number of home buyers, and yet the percentage of Americans owning homes or buying homes is lower than it has been since the 50s.
That's interesting.
Just because people are not student debt and whatever, they're not buying homes as rapidly. So those numbers are coming down. We're headed to our first break, and then we'll quit with the boring stuff, and we'll start talking about homes.
Sounds fun.
See you when you get back.
Right Now 40.
Live news headlines and weather together. Weekdays on Super Talk 1270.
And welcome back to the Dakota Housing Network. I'm Greg Larson here with Jim Walsh and our friend Mike Wilson of Ace Inspections.
Hi, guys.
So, Mike, what do you suppose the biggest remodeling project is for folks now that will return money? You know, like some things you got to do just for maintenance, like updating things. But if you want to get your money back out of a remodel deal, it's traditionally been a master bedroom or master bath, actually, redo, or a kitchen redo. That's changed.
Well, I think if you're taking those factors out of the picture, I think what's left is the outside.
Yeah.
Maybe a kitchen outside.
Ding, 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 ding. Mike wins the award. According to National Association of Realtors, homeowners looking to tackle a remodeling project should head outside. The new report says that the Remodeling Impact Report outdoor features show that not only can outdoor remodeling projects add value to a home on resale, but they can also bring advantages to homeowners planning to stay in their homes in the form of increased happiness. We're seeing that around Bismarck. I was actually, as Mike knows, I'm a kind of a hobby chef, and I auctioned off a dinner for a fundraiser for someone who had a bunch of medical bills, and I went to this house and they wanted an outdoor dinner. And I said, wow, okay. And I went over there, and I was absolutely blown away at this outdoor spot. It had a gas fireplace, set in stone. It had a seating area. It had a wraparound bar. It had a sink. It had a refrigerator. It had a huge grill. It had a exterior burner tops. It had a smoker. I mean, this thing was deluxe. Had this big roof over it. It had a couple of ceiling fans in it, and it had radiant heaters set up in there so that they could use it well into the season and early in April. And it was really a delightful thing. I don't know what they had in it, but it's a highlight spot in their house. So these are things we're looking at. As you go around, you do your home inspections, you look at a lot of homes. Are you seeing bigger, better decks, bigger, better stuff like that?
The outdoor spaces are really starting to expand. Larger decks, hot tubs outside, and we're starting to see more of the outdoor kitchens, more of the outdoor cooking areas. We're noticing more barbecues out there and outdoor sinks and all that stuff. It really is interesting to see the growth.
Okay, so we got a frost warning, freeze warning tonight. What are we worried about with these things?
Well, whenever we're talking about frost, we're talking about water. So if there's an outdoor sink, we want to make sure that the P-trap is drained so we don't have that crack. Any water supplies that we have outside, we want to make sure that those are disconnected and drained. So not only for the sink connections, turn off the water, drain off those lines. Also make sure that the faucet body is drained out so we don't have that freeze up. And we also want to make sure that any of the other water things around your house. For example, if you have garden hoses that are still connected, we want to make sure that we are disconnecting those. It's interesting how many homes that I'm inspecting in the spring where the hose is still connected, and I do have a water pressure gauge that I do connect to that to see whether or not it has damaged the pipe in the wall, and it has happened. So that is a great preventative thing to do there. But
does that happen, Mike, even with these new frost-free spigots? Where the plug goes into the house about a foot?
If the hose is still connected to it with water against it, like if there's a sprayer that is still connected but the water is turned off, it's still holding water against there, and that frost can move into that pipe and freeze it. So that is a definite concern with that.
Okay. Bouncing back out to the outdoor kitchen, these folks had heaters. They were going to use this into November.
Sure.
So they're going to use it into times when those pipes need to be protected. The water line comes in from the house to their sink. Can you heat tape those things or anything to protect them until you're ready to shut them off later in the year?
That's a great subject. We would be able to use heat tape in the sensitive areas along with the insulation around there to make sure that some of the areas are protected, but we also have the exterior faucet. It's going to be difficult to heat tape that. So I think it's still kind of a gray area, kind of a dangerous area to heat tape just the water supply, but not the actual faucet itself. I mean, I think that's a freezing danger.
Okay, so you should still have it rigged so you can drain that thing.
Yeah, I really do, yeah.
What about, like, this one had an outdoor refrigerator?
Mm-hmm.
I know lots of folks have freezers and fridges in their garage. You get darn cold. Should you worry, of course, if you have liquids in your refrigerator and they freeze at 30 below, you're going to pop those babies open. But do we worry about other designs that you're aware of outdoor refrigerators that can take that stuff?
As far as the refrigerator itself, I don't know that it has a damage to it. There is an oil in the coolant that once that starts getting cold enough, then it's going to be hard for the compressor to start because it has to cold start that thick liquid. So that would be probably the only danger with that. As far as fridges in the outside and in the garage, what we find is that the thermostat for the fridge and freezer combo is in the fridge itself. So, for example, if an individual has a refrigerator in the garage and it cools, and the ambient temperature satisfies the fridge, then at that point the freezer is not going to continue to cool, and then your popsicles are going to freeze, and your ice cream is going to melt, and it makes everyone sad. So we want to make sure that we're kind of keeping that in mind. And of course, again, if the ambient temperature gets below 32 degrees, like you said, everything is going to have damage with that. So I am an advocate of just freezers in the garage because they're designed better for that. Fridges should probably be in the inside.
So listen, folks, you with your beer fridges, beware.
That's right. You can have your beer in your fridge, but not the ice.
There you go. All right, so let's move on to Mike. We try to have you here at least 3 or 4 times a year if we can, just talk about home maintenance and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So now we have a freeze warning tonight. So we're getting into some of that maintenance. We've talked some of this before, but other than covering your tomatoes,
sure.
And I heard a weatherman say that tonight is probably the last day for gardening.
Yeah.
After tonight, it's going to get cold enough for a long enough period. Your garden is probably done. Now, I know folks leave potatoes in the ground and that stuff, and of course, apples are better after they freeze once. But
True.
So we're at that point with the garden. So we should probably be at that point with our house in certain respects.
Oh, absolutely. And hopefully for individuals who have underground sprinklers, that is hopefully something that you have taken care of by now. Remember, we do want to have those blown out, not only blown out from the top, but also there is going to be a valve downstairs by your water shutoff, and that's going to actually drain out the back half of the sprinkler system. That's kind of important to do. Just take a gallon bucket or whatever, open up that valve, let that water drain out, and it's going to be much more safe for your sprinkler system. Of course, we did talk about the hoses. We want to make sure we're taking care of that. And we're also talking about gutters, making sure the gutters are cleaned out so everything is going to drain. Not only the gutters, but also the downspouts. So go ahead and pick out all the gutters, all the leaves out of your gutters and such, and then take a hose, go ahead and run that in the gutters, and verify that you're actually getting water coming out of your downspouts. There are times when those leaves do pile up in there. One of the ways of doing that is to just go ahead and put a jet tip on the hose, turn it on full, and just from the top jam it right down the downspout, and that would traditionally jet out the damming leaves in there.
Get rid of any stuck squirrels as well, I would bet.
That's true, and they're nuts. So I want to make sure we're taking care of that. And while you're up there, just go ahead and take a look at your shingles. Make sure if there's any shingles that have been blown up and lifted up, that we put those back down, put a little shingle sealant on the bottom of that, let that adhere. And then if there's any, and this comes from the installation, where there are, it's called a nail pop, where the nail has actually not been fully pounded into the roof, that nail will protrude, the shingle will be damaged on the top. So just go ahead and push that nail down, put a little shingle sealant on that, and check it every 3 to 5 years.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a break, and when we get back, we'll talk about more things to protect your house from the winter. Thank you, Mike.
Right now, 40.
News headlines and weather together, live on Super Talk 1270.
And there we are, Rod Stewart, twisting the night away. We want to start out by saying happy birthday to Simon Cowell. I don't know why. And Michael W. Smith is 58 today. If you don't know that name, he's a 32-time Dove and 8-time Grammy Award winner for Christian music. So
Britt Eklund is 74. That's why we're playing Rod today.
Britt Eklund is 74, and she doesn't look a day over 80.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Mike. we're talking about things to do for our homes, getting ready for winter. We talked about the water lines a little bit. We've talked about getting your sprinkler system done. Talked about your beer fridge in the garage, what you need to do with that, like keep the ice out of it. Mm-hmm. And let's, what's the next big area we should be thinking about?
Let's talk about the heating system, the furnaces, the humidifiers, all that stuff. Let's talk about that for a second. For those of you that have humidifiers out in the house, wouldn't be a bad idea to go ahead and change that humidifier filter. Now, I have seen some that really should have been changed a while ago. Should be changed every year. There are suppliers, Menards, Lowe's, Ace, that have those. Usually you'll have a model number on the humidifier to tell you specifically what unit you have. Take that to the professionals there. They'll be able to help you with that. It's actually fairly easy. Everyone can do it. Go ahead and take off the cover. Some of them have a screw on the bottom. Some of them have two buttons, one on the top, one on the bottom. Go ahead and take that off. There you'll see a water line coming into a plastic cartridge or a frame, and then of course a meshy filter in there. Pull the water line out first. Pull the cartridge out. You'll hear some clicking and stuff. That's normal. Pull from the top. Now look on the top of that cartridge. There'll be either a piece that pulls up, so the top will come off, or maybe the sides pull apart, so then the top will come up or release. That filter can be taken out, put the new one in there, and of course the reverse is true. Go ahead and put the top on. Go ahead and put the cartridge in the humidifier, making sure that the bottom of that cartridge has a spigot that goes into a receiver in the bottom of the humidifier body itself. Get that mist, and you're going to get water all over your place. And then put in the water line. Make sure it goes in and stops, because that water will go across the top of the humidifier and down the filter. Now, adjusting the humidity is very important, and this is something that I really find as a miss in a lot of the houses I inspect. A lot of people find that they're comfortable at a specific humidity level, 30, 40%. The thing is that at 20 degrees outside, you can have the indoor humidity at 30%. But when it gets down to 20 below, and we'll see it, hopefully not very much, the humidity should actually be 15. Now, here's the reason why. Just like in the summer, in the morning, you'll get the morning dew on the grass. That's the same thing. You'll get some condensation on your windows, because the bottom of the windows are going to be colder. The indoor humidity, if it's set too high, you're going to get condensation on the bottom of your windows. And if you're getting condensation on your windows, Vegas Money says that you're getting condensation inside your walls. And that can cause an unhealthy house and breathing issues. So we want to make sure we're maintaining that. So we want to make sure that we're adjusting the humidity accordingly. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is that when the temperature drops, you may get some condensation in there just because your house is drying out. That's fine. But if that persists, then that's something you want to address. Now, with that, let's talk about your furnace. And of course, your furnace has a filter. We want to make sure that we're changing a 1-inch filter once every 2 months, 6-inch filter once every 6 months. So pretty easy. For those of you who have a 2-inch filter slot, I really do not want you to put in two 1-inch filters. I've seen that before. What that does is it creates too much resistance, and it can shorten the life of your heat exchanger. So we want to make sure we're monitoring that. Talking about heat exchangers, we want to make sure that we have carbon monoxide detectors in the house. They should be near the sleeping levels, sleeping areas. We want them about a foot down from the top of the ceiling in the hallway. That way, that's going to be the most sensitive area. Carbon monoxide is lighter than air, but not as light as hot air. That's why we want to put it right there. Kitty does a nice battery-operated carbon monoxide detector.
Kitty is a brand name?
Kitty is a brand name. Walmart, Menards, Lowe's, all those other places, Ace. I like that one because I'm kind of a nerd. Just saying, it does have a monitor, a screen on there that will tell you that you're getting 20 parts per million and alert you at 70 parts per million. So that way you'll know it's either carbon monoxide or the tequila, one of the two.
One of the two.
Yeah. So now let's talk about the furnace itself. If you take off the cover when it's running and you notice that there are a lot of yellow tips in the flame, that's an indicator that it does need to be cleaned. The fuel-air mixture is very important, and we want to make sure that the air channels are nice and clean. You start starving the furnace of air, it'll start creating carbon monoxide. So heaven forbid you have a cracked heat exchanger, damaged exhaust, that you're not getting that extra carbon monoxide in your place. Now,
let me just interrupt you real quickly, Mike. So you're, if you guys out there listening aren't comfortable doing this yourself, where can you? Most of the mechanical engineers, heating and cooling guys, will do an inspection, right?
Oh, they absolutely will.
Okay.
And have them, take a look at it, clean it accordingly. I definitely support that. So, but as a just an observation, it's easy to go ahead and take that cover off when it's running, and just take a look in there. So, now one of the things that I'm finding is if the air filter is too thick, there's a thing called the MERV rating, which rates.
Well, you are a nerd, just a little.
I am a bit of a nerd. MERV, M-E-R-V rating. That's what that is. Funny, I like that. The higher the MERV rating, the more particulates it'll catch. Usually your high allergen filters will do that for you. Unfortunately, it also restricts the air. One of the things that happens is that the furnace is designed to have X cubic feet of air coming in to it to counteract the amount of heat that's going through the heat exchanger. When you start cutting that amount down, then the heat exchanger starts getting too hot, and then there is a safety switch, a high temperature limiter switch, that will kick it off. So it'll turn off the fire, run the fan to cool that down, and after it's cooled down, then it'll light the furnace again. Now, that's an indicator that something is wrong.
So if your furnace is coming on and off a lot?
Without actually stopping fully.
Right.
If you turn your thermostat up and it's stalling out like that, that's an indicator that, one, it needs to be cleaned. Two, your air filter is too thick or too dirty. We want to make sure we're making those adjustments. I'm not a big fan of those mesh air filters. My theory is if you can see through it, it's keeping the cats and dogs out, and that's about it.
Okay. So if we have an electrostatic air filter, that's a whole different story, right?
Right. There are specific ways of cleaning those. You can get water on those and then let those dry out before putting those back in. Traditionally, they will have a mesh filter in front to catch like the pet hair and the dander and stuff like that.
Okay. All right. So I've got a furnace. In my case, I have a ground source heat pump. So mine is electric. So those of us who have electric furnaces or baseboard electric, is there a maintenance issue that we should be aware of?
We want to make sure that along with hot water heat, that's going to be the same thing. So electric baseboard heat, hot water heat, those heat registers, they can get dirty just because of pet hair and stuff, dust collecting on those fins. Go ahead and take off the cover, kind of take it apart, take a vacuum after it, and clean off those fins. It'll make it run more efficiency. And if you have a hot water system, of course, the temperature can be adjusted by the louver on the top. But if, let's say you have a child's room, a baby's room, and you want to get that warmer versus the rest of the house, one of the ways of doing that is to go ahead and take a small fan, blow that underneath the register, and then as the hot water comes through, it'll actually gather more of the heat and warm that room better.
Okay, just a little fan blowing, huh?
That's all it is.
That'll do it.
Pretty easy.
Okay. Boiler maintenance, we've got just a couple minutes here before we go to a break, but
If you have a hot water system, you really do want to get friendly with your pressure gauge and your temperature gauge. Traditionally, the water should be set at 180 degrees. Now, when the pump kicks off, it may go up a little bit more, but that's fine. Your operating pressure should be between 12 and 20 pounds of pressure in a normal system. If you have those big radiators, like in the older homes, then you're running down to 5 and 10 pounds per. So kind of keep that in mind. Now, there is going to be a high temperature, high pressure relief valve that is set at 30 pounds of pressure. So if for some reason you have too much air in the system, then it will release that. Try not to pester too much with the water amount in there. The more fresh water we put in there, the more minerals we're going to put in there, and the more mineral buildup we'll have in the bottom.
okay, we're going to go away, come back for the final segment. We're going to talk about what else you do to protect yourself and your house in the winter.
Right now, 44.
Dave Ramsey is heard here. Super Talk 1270.
Is that can't be a Rod Stewart song. Sure it is. There you go. Well, happy birthday, Brett. Hope your lung is working.
That's important.
Okay, so we're talking, Mike. We're back here with Mike Wilson, Ace Inspections. By the way, you should give us your phone number because I know that if folks call you with a question, you're happy to answer it. So what is your phone number?
I'd love to answer any questions. My telephone number is 701-471-5344, and my web address is aceinspectionsnd.com.
Okay, so we've been talking about furnaces. We talked about some electrical things. There's other things we should pay attention to. Mike, I'm just going to let you start. What?
You know, in North Dakota, heat efficiency is very important. So we want to make sure that we are checking insulation, checking the window seals, checking the doors. So let's talk about that. In days like this morning, we did have some frost. So one of the things to do is to step out in your driveway, look at your roof compared to everyone else's roof. If your roof doesn't have any frost on it and everyone else does, that means you need insulation. So call up your professional or do it yourself. Get it done. 12 to 14 inches is kind of the industry standard here in North Dakota of fiberglass or cellulose, whichever you choose. They both have the same R value. You want to be cautious about being overzealous. You know, you get over to 18, 20 inches of insulation. One of the difficult things that happens is that you start getting moisture build up on the bottom of the insulation. And that can cause an issue. So we want to make sure that we're, maintaining that. Now, let's also talk about other areas where heat can escape your house. We want to make sure that doors have good weather stripping. If you close a door and you still see sunlight outside, you should do something about that. Also, that's
where the crickets get in, by the way, folks.
That's true. We also want to make sure that we're adjusting the threshold so we don't have that cold air coming from underneath your door. Also, here's an interesting thing that I come across kind of often. For those individuals who have double hung windows, there are times when the people just get frustrated because their window won't lock. They push down on the bottom window and it just won't even out. What's happened is that top window has slid down just a little bit, and that's why it won't lock. What I found is when I walk into that room's cold. Make sure you push that top window up fully, and it is fully locked. And I do advocate putting on those window locks. It does keep it not only tight, weather tight, and also is another way of checking to make sure that is even.
Yeah, so we've talked about that before with double hung windows, folks. The lock on that window isn't just for your safety, it's for a tight seal.
That is correct.
So,
that's correct.
Even if you don't think you need to lock the window to be safe, you might want to lock it just to keep it tightly sealed in the frame.
That's right. So, also...
See, there I knew something.
Of course. Greg has great knowledge when it comes to these things, and also a very great real estate professional. So you want to touch base with
man, it's mutual admiration here today, folks.
So another thing is we want to make sure that you're outside a house, if you have stucco and you have cracks, we want to make sure that those are sealed. If we do get moisture in there and it freezes and you can get some of that popping out, and you can get moisture damage in there. Also,
Now, are you talking about original stucco, like on an older home?
Original stucco.
More than the EIFI fake stucco that we're doing now?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Well, also with that, we want on the EIF material, we do want to make sure that that is also sealed, because you can get moisture in
Okay.
that foam. Also, check your window cutouts, where that is molded in there. Sometimes you will get some of that, the stucco that has chipped off, and you'll see a little bit of that netting underneath there.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that that's sealed up, because that can attract water and can be an issue.
Seal it with
Well, there is
silicone adhesive or silicone? Or
You can do like a caulking material. They do have tints on that. You can also talk to a stucco professional. Have him mix up a batch of material for patching as needed.
Okay.
Yeah. Another thing that I'm coming across is the stonework on the outside, where it has started to come loose, or you're getting water behind there. That can be an issue. So we want to make sure that we are sealing the areas around the edges and the top, because we don't want to get water behind there. And if it is starting to come loose, then we do want to talk to a professional and make sure that that is either tightened up or adhered to the house.
Okay. You're talking about the cultured stone that we see mostly around here, and not a natural stone, or both?
Cultured stone, any type of trim work that can get water behind it or on top. We want to make sure
Okay.
that that is sealed well.
Yeah, I just read a thing just briefly about this cultured stone, that people are putting on their homes. They want to make sure that they check that, because they're having lots of issues with moisture, humidity, and then deterioration behind the stone.
Mm-hmm.
In not really this area, more in the south areas of the nation, but still could be an issue, huh?
Very true. Very true. So, and of course, landscaping with this big rainstorm that we had in June. If your house was dry for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden got water in that last storm, a lot of people that were kind of on the cusp with their grading and their landscaping, downspouts and stuff, really did start getting a little bit of water in there. So let's talk about mold. Now, when hopefully during that time you did dry out your carpet and all that other stuff, when you remove the water component, then if there is mold in your walls or whichever, then that's just going to go dormant, and it won't continue to regenerate. And it's the spores that we are allergic to, and especially with the black mold, the Stachybotrys, that it actually creates a toxin when it goes through its cycle. But mold needs a high level of consistent water in order for that mold to continue to reproduce. And Stachybotrys, the black mold, is a very high level. So, and Stachybotrys, when it propagates, it actually propagates very a small amount of seed or spores, versus like penicillin, when that propagates, it is thousands. So that's something to kind of keep in mind, and kind of have a comfort in your mind when it comes to that.
Yeah, so the bottom line is keep the water away from your house, keep your humidity low,
That's correct.
and then watch for, in your bathroom, especially high humidity areas, just make sure that you run that fan a little extra long to dry it out, or leave the door open after a shower so the humidity can balance. Is that?
Absolutely. I'm an advocate of putting in a fan timer. They have either the crank style or just the button, where you'd be able to adjust the time accordingly, and then it just turns off.
Okay.
And I really do want you to take a moment to make sure that that vent is moving to the outside, not just into your attic, because that can cause issues. Now, one of the things, talking about attics and the bathroom and such, if you're noticing that you're, in the past, where you've had a sewer vent that is freezing up, boy, that sure can be an issue, can't it?
Yeah.
The thing is, it's actually fairly easy to remedy. Go ahead and either yourself, if you're comfortable with a little bit of soldering copper, or just talk to a buddy who can, or a handy guy. Take a copper pipe, 3/4 inch. Take like a 6-inch stick. Go ahead and lower that down into the sewer vent gently.
Okay, folks, we're talking about the vent on the top of your roof that can freeze over in cold weather
That's correct.
and cause sewer gas issues.
That's correct. We want to go ahead and extend that down. Make sure that it's 6 inches above where that first elbow is, and then mark that, cut that, and then put a T on top of that, and then extensions on the sides, so then it'll actually hang on the top of that pipe. Copper attracts heat from your attic area and will keep that area clear. So that'll be something to kind of keep in mind and add in there if you've had
Great
an issue in
idea.
the past.
Okay. We have just a few minutes, just actually a minute left. Mike, once again, Mike Wilson, Ace Inspections, thank you very much. Give us your phone number, your website again.
701-471-5344 is my telephone number, and my website is aceinspectionsnd.com.
And we'll have Mike again back. We'll talk about some other things. Thank you very much, Mike. As always, good information. Watch out for the scary clowns, folks. Thanks for joining us.